You are listening to an episode of Transparency and Merit. My name's Joe, and I'm here with Brian, and we're talking about Nathaniel Woods. Nathaniel Woods was executed this evening, and I guess we have a few questions, maybe a few statements to make. But go ahead, Brian. What do you have?
And I'll say we do have a few. I do have a few questions, a few, and perhaps even a few. I don't even know if I have any statements. I have more questions than really anything else. But I'm looking at. I mean, a lot of this stuff is kind of pro Nathaniel Woods, that he is innocent, or at least he deserves a stay of execution, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if there's any articles or anyone out there who thinks that because he wasn't the shooter, but they say that he was one of the reason for those cops' death. He was responsible basically for their deaths. That he kind of ordered the murder of the three police officers, and that's, I believe, why he's being executed. I could be wrong. I just heard this story, but I just wanted to look over and see if there was anything out there in on the internet. Like I googled it, and if there was anything out, any news story out there that was like saying, hey, this guy is guilty, and whether you believe in the death penalty or not, this gentleman is guilty, and he is not being unjustly executed. Uh, from my understanding, I think the law was in 1983 in Alabama that if you cause the deaths, if you help perpetrate the deaths of police officers, you stand a chance of facing the death penalty. And this was in 2005. He was found guilty, and we're just trying to, see if, like I said, is he guilty? Is he innocent? And that's what we're trying to find out right now. And we're just trying to discuss right now. I don't know if we're going to come really to any conclusions, Joe, but I'm just looking at
Well,
it
you know
right
what?
now.
I'm just, I'm kind of a by the numbers kind of person. I always have been, no matter how much I try to hide it. My first job was for my first real job was for an accountant, an accounting agency, and I worked in accounting for as an accountant, production accountant, for close to 15 years before I had a dramatic shift in my career, but but still, nevertheless, I'm a numbers guy, and one thing I do is I go through every story, and in particular, I go through stories dealing with race, and so we asked the question about shaming rituals, and it's something I think in the future we might get a little bit more into as we progress and as we have a larger body of work under transparency and merit. But um, if you notice his age, uh, that Nathaniel Woods was executed at the age of 42. Um, a lot of people who know numbers like I do will immediately refer to so many um, stories in the news that have a 42 encoded in one way or another. And I think I'll save some of the details because some of it's a little bit, I have to probably put it in the right words for people to kind of get it. But a lot of stories during Black History Month, for example, like the Tyson Fury fight was riddled in the number 42. And there was a LeBron James story riddled in 42. Just a ton of stories. And it's an interesting thing. And it's an important thing to look at too when you're reading stories from the media. So just a decoding practice that I have, and I was shocked when I did read the story and saw that he was sure enough 42 years of age. But yeah, the interesting story here nonetheless. He I wanted to read a little bit about this just so people have a background of what happened basically. So an Alabama man convicted of fatally shooting 3 officers in 2004 was executed Thursday night, despite last-minute legal drama and pleas for clemency from family members, high-profile activists, and even the victim's sister, who all say he shouldn't be put to death since he didn't pull the trigger. Woods, 42, was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death in 2005 for the 2004 killing of 3 police officers. Although Spencer admitted he was the actual gunman who shot at the officer several times, prosecutors argued during 2005 trial that Woods was also responsible for their deaths because he conspired with his roommate in a grisly slaying. He's 100% innocent. That's a quote you may want to look up. It's 100%. He's 100% innocent. Pamela Woods, his sister, said outside the doors of the Alabama state capitol Wednesday evening in a last-minute plea for reprieve. Let him go or give us time to have the courts review the case. So a lot of drama. It goes on.
I just Googled Nathaniel Woods guilty, and I can't find any articles that are pro like his execution, are like that says that, hey man, this guy, and maybe there will be later on, or someone will do a news thing that says, hey, this person is guilty, like he did conspire. There was a lot of evidence against him, but I am not finding that.
In a letter to Ivy, Martin Luther King III, who we'll show a video of him in a moment, the son of Martin Luther King Jr., wrote that the 42-year-old's execution would only show that Alabama has not learned from the past and that they have not learned from the civil rights movement of the 1960s that focused on justice and respect for human rights.
Well,
killing this African-American man, whose case appears to have strongly been mishandled by the courts, could produce an irreversible injustice, he added. I urge you to grant him a reprieve. We must allow the time to review the new evidence.
Yes, and I'm looking, by the way, at Nathaniel Woods was pronounced dead at 9:01 p.m. after being executed by the state. It's over. Anyone who had power to do what was right failed. I am sick and disgusted with the system. Rip Nate, I'm sorry we couldn't do more. Nathaniel Woods was murdered tonight by the state of Alabama. His crime was being in the home where a crime was committed by another person. He was illegally lynched by state order. Nate, I'm sorry. You were deeply, horrifically failed by this country.
Biblical T. 4 + 2 is 6. That is the numeral. Yeah, that's right. This is heartbreaking. All right, Mandy, what's going on? Darren is here. Darren wants a new movie Thursday. Sorry, man.
We'll do that some other time. Yeah. So, and then Stance Grounded says, how many of our black brothers would be alive today if it weren't for false accusation and the execution for crime for a crime they did not commit. Nathaniel Woods, another name added to the list of black men murdered by the state for a crime they did not commit. Justice for Nathaniel. And then Teresa Chase sitting here tonight, completely gutted by the injustice, by the unjust execution of Nathaniel Woods. We see you, Alabama. And then Kim Kardashian West says, the court has lifted the temporary stay for execution for Nathaniel Woods. The governor will not save his life. My heart and prayers are with Nate and his family. This is a tragic example of injustice in the system. A few minutes, Nate may die for a crime he did not commit. Well, he's already passed away. So, but these MFers still alive for parole. He killed 4 little girls in the 1963 church bombing in the same city and state where Nate lives. This, when is his date? Okay, and that's the person who what do you call it? The church bombing of the 4 little girls in Alabama.
So should we watch this video really quick?
Go ahead. Yeah, let's do that.
Activists are calling for an 11th hour intervention by Alabama Governor Kay Ivey to halt the execution of a black prisoner set for this evening. Nathaniel Woods was sentenced to be executed by lethal injection, convicted of multiple counts of capital murder and attempted murder for the 2004 killings of 3 police officers, in which authorities say a co-defendant was the gunman. Prosecutors argued that Woods conspired in the killings, which occurred when officers tried to serve a misdemeanor domestic assault warrant on him. Woods' family members and supporters have argued that the co-defendant said he was the sole person responsible for the shootings, and also claimed there are outstanding questions about the fairness of Woods' trial, arguing that Woods had ineffective counsel and the trial itself had multiple errors. The nonprofit death penalty organization Center says, quote, Woods' racially charged convictions and death sentences are tainted by claims of police corruption, intimidation of witnesses, and inadequate representation. In Alabama, being an accomplice to a murder can also result in a death sentence and remains the only state in the country where a jury does not have to unanimously impose the death penalty. A federal judge Monday dismissed Woods' request for a today. Joining us now, civil rights leader Martin Luther King III.
Martin, thank you so much for being with us. We greatly appreciate it. This is a case where family members, lawyers, supporters, outside groups, civil rights leaders all say that this man was not involved in the murder, and there's evidence to suggest that. And yet, tonight at 6 p.m., if things don't change, he's going to get executed. Tell us why you got involved in this case.
So thank you for the opportunity. I got involved when I found out about the gross, I don't want to say negligence, but how the system, the legal system, seems not to be working. Certainly, Mr. Woods had an incompetent lawyer on capital cases, not incompetent generally, but perhaps on capital cases, because it's very clear to me that if there's any inkling of doubt that someone innocent may be killed, then it seems to me that that should not happen. And because, as you've stated, the gentleman who did the actual murders came forward and has stated that there was no involvement, that they were not operating together, it would just seem that the governor would provide a stay. That seems to fall on deaf ears. And what it feels like to many in the African-American community is, once again, this is like a lynching. An innocent person is slated to die this evening. And that should be unacceptable. The legal system has got to do better, or justice certainly has to be served in some responsible fashion, it seems to me.
Kareen is with us and has a question. Kareen.
Hi there, Martin. Good to see you again. My question to you is, how do people get involved in this fight? And not just in this case, but in the broader, in the broader fight to end the death penalty?
So I think that Amnesty International is one of the great organizations that I've been involved in. And everyone is not against the death penalty, obviously. But I believe we have to create a consciousness in the.
So we got a question. How long do you guys think this country can continue to do wicked things like this before God Almighty makes the country pay? Revelations 18, King James Version is about America. Terrible. It's going to bring out some polarizing thoughts, I think. Brian, are you muted?
I'd always say, compared to what? There are plenty of nations that have a death penalty, and they murder for things that do not. They kill people for things that do not involve violence. So, not just America kills people, but other nations kill people as well. So, and like I said, if this person was innocent, and like I said, it is, I just heard about this case. I think I heard some of it yesterday, and I just got the fact that he was executed today. So I'm just, examining the facts of this, and like I said, I cannot find anything. Like I Googled, I just Googled search just to see if there was anything that was anti Nathaniel Woods, and really there is nothing out there that is that. Everything says that there should be a stay of execution, and that the man is innocent. Well, I would also say, he's.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, well, he says, being that America is a Christian country. By the way, I believe that Nathaniel Woods had converted to Islam, by the way, but then that's another issue. But he said, being that America is a Christian country, the death penalty is done away with. The Messiah nailed to the cross. I wonder if this is somebody that someone from Arizona that you and I both know, named what the heck? I can't even remember his name.
Kurt?
Yes.
Kurt, is that you? No,
is America the model for the world? Well,
you know what?
There are more people trying to come in here than are trying to leave.
That very well could be Kurt. Kurt,
yes.
Show yourself.
Yes, but I wanted to say, is America the model for the world? Well, there are more people trying to get in than that are trying to leave. And you're right. What does Nate Wood's religion have to do with America's beliefs? Well, a lot of people believe that the Christian faith, a Judeo-Christian nation, and I would say that I'm not one. I don't subscribe to any specific religion, but I'll say this: the death penalty. I would think that the death penalty is allowed in the Bible. I don't know. I know that the Book of Moses said that murderers are to be put to death. So that's.
I'm a victim of violence. My father was gunned down by an assassin. My grandmother was gunned down. My father by a white man, my grandmother by a black man. And I have always been against the death penalty. I think it's an archaic form of punishment. I think that we are better than the way that we operate. And I think it's mostly consciousness. Ultimately, when you think about developing nations, we are one of those nations that continues to believe, okay, if you do something, we're going to come and get you. and this is what feels good momentarily. But I just have to believe we have to continue to mobilize people in the nation and world so that ultimately elected officials will come around to this position. It obviously is going to take some time, but we should never give up.
Well, the case is, again, Nathaniel Woods, 44. He is set to die at 6 p.m. tonight. The man who actually committed the murder has.
All right. So there's that.
Yeah. So, and I've been looking, by the way, if you like, I've YouTube Nathaniel Woods, Alabama, and a lot of this out there is, I mean, at least stay of execution. They said that there was new evidence and that he received a misguided trial. And you know what? I mean, now T.I. has also reacted to Nathaniel Woods. It's only a minute long. Should we play T.I.'s reaction to?
Where's the link?
You want me to give you the? You want me to give you the link?
Yes. Go.
All right. Hold on. Let me just hold on 1 second. Let me just put the link in your Skype box here.
Sounds like you have to take a hardcore.
Well, sooner or later I will have to, but let's. This is only a minute long, so.
All right.
And I haven't listened to it yet, so it's
All right, let's let me go here real quick. Throw this on.
Yo, so they got the word that they lifted the stay of execution for Nate Woods in Alabama. The Supreme Court lifted it, and now the governor, who has already said that she is not going to change her mind, is the only one that could stop the execution. All right. Well, let me say this. Let's just be clear about what this is. This ain't a legal execution. This is a lynching. All right. So everybody in Atlanta treated like a lynching. Everybody in Alabama treated like a lynching. Everybody in South Carolina treated like a lynching. Everybody in Tennessee and New York and California treated like a lynching. Don't accept this as any kind of legal court issue punishment for a crime, because that ain't what this is. This is a lynching. All right. So you want to lynch? We take it at that. We understand, brother. To be absent with the bodies, to be present with the Lord. We fought for you. And we.
Well, I mean, is this a lynching? How guilty was he? How responsible was he for the murder of these police officers?
And Biblical T is right. People need to wake up. And I don't know to what truth you're talking about. There is one truth. So I'm not so sure. There's, when you start throwing Bible verses and talking about God, you're bound to be met with opposition, and I don't know how much closer to the truth will be, but everybody, and I don't like to say everybody finds their truth. I don't believe that. I believe there is but one truth, and we're working on that. We're working on that. There is one truth, and you're right. People need to wake up. I'm with you all the way downtown on that one for sure.
Well, one truth, many opinions. And here's the deal on that one of the things you're trying to do on transparency and merit is get those many opinions out there, because really you can't have, transparency without debate. You cannot have transparency or merit without debate. I do have, sooner or later, I don't know how long I can last.
Let's just close this one down. As long as we've got what we had to get said. We do have a few people watching, so thank you. Make sure you like and subscribe, or at least subscribe. We need the subscribers badly.
Yeah.
But
And by the way, this may be we may just go back to this one just for a little bit, just to say, you know, like, was this correct? Was this wrong? Or, you know, like, because you know what?
I think what I'm going to do is go back and I'm going to look at all the numbers, because when it comes to media stories, I have a very harsh criticism of what we're seeing. So I'd like to scrutinize the numbers and see what is here in the story. Just in that, even in that, it's kind of funny. They were talking about misrepresentations in that art, in that one story, not the TI, but the news story, and they were talking about representations in the media, but they had his age wrong when they
well, a few times times they had his age incorrect,
right?
And the thing of it is, Joe, you know what I mean? Social media, it seems like there are no level heads out there. Like, hey, wait a minute. I mean, like, I don't know enough about the case to make a decision to call it a lynching. I want to examine all of the facts before I make a decision and decide whether this is, whether this was just or whether this was a true miscarriage of justice. Because there have been, the media has been wrong before, particularly on, I mean, and the media has, and it's skewed things before. There's a whole thing on the Central Park Five that a lot of people haven't heard of before. Like, you know, a lot of that story out there, completely wrong about it. You know, at first I thought one thing, like, you know, with the Ken Burns documentary and the recent film When They See Us, and then there's a whole other story out there about, you know, what they were actually charged with, and you know, like, what actually went down. I mean, these were not angels. They were, supposedly beating people up. They beat up a jogger, not a jogger, but I think they beat up a cyclist or a jogger. I don't have the full story, but you were not given the full story in that the documentary and in that docudrama. I don't think it's a very accurate portrayal. And America, you know what, the media, the entertainment industry and the media have been doing this kind of thing for years, whether it's on the right or the left. They've always skewed things, and we just want, hey, let's get to the truth here. And you can't get to the truth unless you have, you know, a media that is like able to do that, and that's one of the things we're not allowed to do now.
Right.
Anyway, I think that'll end it. Like and subscribe, and we're just trying to get free speech. I mean,
That's right.
You know, just continue. The conversation. All right.
That's it. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and we will talk to you later. Thank you, Biblical Tea. Join us anytime. Hey, next time we're on, give us a call. We're always taking calls. We'd love to have people in the room giving us calls, and we welcome new ideas anytime.
Yep.